I wiped down the grimy breakroom table, my hands shaking as I listened to the voices behind me. The assistant manager, Harlan, was laughing with two senior staff members about the useless old lady who couldn't even scan items properly. "Did you see her face when we double-charged that customer this morning?" Harlan snorted. "She had no clue we pocketed the extra 20. My stomach turned. The senior rep, Alex, chimed in. "We need to get her fired before the owner comes sniffing around. This old bat is slowing us down." I kept scrubbing the same spot over and over, forcing myself to stay calm. They had no idea who was really listening. I wanted to spin around and tell them exactly who I was, but I couldn't blow my cover. Not yet. "She's probably desperate for the job," laughed the third voice, Casey. "Bet she'd do anything to keep it." Their cruel laughter echoed in the small room. I gripped the dirty rag tighter, my knuckles white. These people worked for me. They were stealing from my customers and plotting to destroy an innocent woman's livelihood. What they didn't know was that the useless old lady owned everything they saw. Let me stop right there and tell you something. My name is Meryl Vance, and I own this store. I own all 5 stores in this chain, actually. The building we're standing in, the inventory on the shelves, even the breakroom table I was cleaning, it all belongs to me. For the past 6 months, I've been working undercover as a sales rep in my own business. I dyed my hair mouse brown, ditched my usual tailored suits for cheap clothes, and used my maiden name to get hired. Nobody recognized me. Why would I do something so crazy? Because my profits were disappearing, my longtime customers were complaining about being cheated, and good employees kept quitting without explanation. My management team kept telling me it was just the economy, but my gut said otherwise. I built this business from nothing with my late husband 30 years ago. We started with a tiny thrift shop and grew it into a respected retail chain. After he died 10 years ago, this store became my last connection to him. I never imagined the betrayal would feel this personal. Hearing them mock me, plot against me, admit to stealing, it made my skin crawl. But I needed proof before I could act. I wasn't always a business owner. I grew up on a struggling farm where every penny mattered. My parents worked from dawn to dusk just to keep food on the table. By age 13, I was working alongside them, learning that nothing in life comes easy. My mother used to tell me, "People show their true selves when money's involved, Meryl. Watch how they treat others when they think nobody's looking." Those words stuck with me through everything. We didn't have much, but we had integrity. My father would rather go hungry than cheat a neighbor. My mother would mend clothes until they fell apart before buying new ones. They taught me that your reputation is worth more than gold. When I left the farm at 18, I carried those values with me. I worked double shifts at a diner, saving every dollar I could. The customers who looked down on me for being a simple waitress had no idea I was building towards something bigger. Those early years of struggle taught me to spot fake people quickly. I learned to read faces, listen to tone, and watch for the little signs that reveal someone's character. Skills that would prove invaluable later in business. And now, 30 years later, those same skills were helping me uncover the rot in my own company. Everything changed when I met Phil. He was a carpenter with calloused hands and the warmest smile I'd ever seen. He came into the diner where I worked every Tuesday for coffee and pie, always leaving a generous tip, even though he clearly didn't have much money. "You're going to own your own place someday," he told me one evening. "I can see it in your eyes. You've got that fire." We started dating, then planning, then dreaming together. Phil had this vision of a small shop where regular folks could find quality goods at fair prices. Not fancy, not pretentious, just honest business. We pooled our savings and opened a tiny thrift store in an old building downtown. Phil built all the shelves by hand. I handled the books and customer service. We worked 18-hour days and loved every minute of it. "This is our legacy," Phil would say, wrapping his arms around me as we locked up each night. Something we built together with our own hands. The business grew slowly but steadily. We reinvested every profit, treating employees like family and customers like friends. Our reputation spread through word of mouth. People trusted us because we never broke that trust. Phil always said, "The day we stop caring about people is the day we should close the doors." 10 years ago, Phil had a heart attack while restocking shelves. He died holding my hand in the hospital, making me promise to keep the business going. "Don't let anyone destroy what we built," he whispered. I thought I'd honored that promise. The business kept growing. We opened 4 more locations. Revenue hit millions. I hired managers I trusted and stepped back to enjoy the success we'd earned. But over the past year, something felt wrong. Profits dropped 20%, while expenses stayed the same. Longtime customers started complaining about overcharges and rude service. 3 of my best employees quit within 2 months, citing management issues. When I asked my store managers what was happening, they all said the same thing. "It's the economy, Mrs. Vance. Everyone's struggling. These customers are just looking for someone to blame." But the complaints kept coming. An elderly woman called crying because she'd been charged twice for the same item. A young mother said my staff accused her of shoplifting when she questioned her receipt. A loyal customer of 15 years said he'd never come back after being treated like garbage. My gut told me to dig deeper. Phil always said to trust that feeling. So I started making surprise visits to the stores, watching from the parking lot, talking to customers privately. That's when I knew I had to go undercover. Planning my disguise took weeks. I studied myself in the mirror, figuring out how to become invisible in my own stores. The expensive highlights had to go. I dyed my hair a dull brown and let the gray roots show. I traded my designer clothes for discount store outfits that hung loose on my frame. The hardest part was changing my posture and voice. As an owner, I walked tall and spoke with authority. As Mary Valdez, my maiden name, I had to slouch, speak softly, and act uncertain. I practiced for hours until it felt natural. I chose the flagship store for my mission, the one Phil and I had opened first. If corruption existed there, it would hurt the most. Using my maiden name and a fake address, I applied for a part-time sales position. The branch manager, Patricia, barely looked at my application during the interview. "Can you start Monday?" she asked, clearly desperate for help. "We're short-staffed because people keep quitting." My first day felt surreal. Walking through the doors, Phil and I had painted together, seeing our name on the wall above the register, but being treated like a stranger. The irony wasn't lost on me. Patricia handed me a name badge that read Mary and pointed to a corner. "Just try to stay out of everyone's way," she said dismissively. From minute 1, I felt the hostility. Harlan, the assistant manager, looked me up and down like I was something he'd scrape off his shoe. The senior reps, Alex, Casey, and Ryan, barely acknowledged my existence. "Great, another old-timer," Alex muttered to Casey as I struggled with the new register system. "These people can barely use a cell phone, let alone learn our system." Casey laughed. "Give her a week, she'll quit like the rest." When I asked Harlan about break times, he sighed dramatically. "Listen, Mary, we run a tight ship here. If you can't keep up, there's the door." They moved my name badge to the bottom of the staff board, so customers see the real employees first. They gave me the oldest, slowest register. They forgot to tell me about staff meetings. But the worst part was watching how they treated customers. Harlan would roll his eyes when elderly shoppers asked questions. Alex would tap his fingers impatiently while people counted change. Casey would make sarcastic comments under her breath. This wasn't the business Phil and I had built. These people were destroying everything we'd worked for, one rude interaction at a time. I smiled politely through every slight, but inside I was taking notes. Every dismissive comment, every cruel gesture, I remembered it all. After my first week, something strange happened during closing. I'd balanced my register perfectly. I'd been handling money for 30 years after all. But when Harlan counted it, he frowned. "You're short $40, he announced loudly, making sure everyone heard. "Must have given wrong change all day." I knew that wasn't true, but arguing would blow my cover. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I thought I counted carefully." Harlan forced me to sign a written warning. "One more mistake like this and you're gone," he said, waving the paper in my face. "We can't afford employees who lose money." As he locked up, I noticed Harlan stuffing something into his jacket pocket. Through the security mirror, I saw it was a thick wad of cash. My missing $40, no doubt, plus whatever else he'd skimmed throughout the day. I sat in my car afterward, hands shaking with rage. This man was stealing from my business and making me sign papers admitting to his crimes. The manipulation was breathtaking. That night, I started a file at home. Every incident, every theft, every lie, I documented everything. Harlan thought he was clever, but he had no idea who he was really dealing with. Phil always said cheaters eventually hang themselves. I just had to give Harlan enough rope. 3 weeks in, my heart nearly stopped when I saw a familiar face walk through the door. Bill Henderson, Phil's old carpenter buddy, came in looking for picture frames. He'd been to our house countless times over the years. I dove behind the customer service counter, pretending to organize receipt books. My hands shook as I shuffled papers, praying he wouldn't recognize my voice if he heard me speak. "Excuse me, miss," Bill called out. "Do you know if Meryl still owns this place? I'd love to say hello if she's around." Harlan answered smoothly. "Oh, Mrs. Vance never comes to the stores anymore. She's basically retired. We handle everything now." The lie made me furious, but I stayed hidden until Bill left with his frames. That close call reminded me how dangerous this mission was. If anyone recognized me, 6 months of work would be wasted. I started wearing a baseball cap pulled low and thick glasses I didn't need. I changed my wet, walking style and practiced speaking in a higher pitch. The disguise had to be perfect. That night, I called Bill from home, making up an excuse about being busy with administrative work. He mentioned his store visit, saying the staff seemed different than before, not as friendly. His words confirmed what I already knew. My employees were destroying our reputation one customer at a time. The next week, I witnessed something that made my blood boil. An elderly man named Walter came in to buy a birthday gift for his granddaughter. He moved slowly with his walker, carefully counting coins from a small purse. Alex served him with obvious impatience, sighing loudly and tapping the counter. When Walter asked about a discount bracelet, Alex said rudely, "Sir, this isn't a bargain basement. If you can't afford our prices, maybe try the dollar store." Walter's face flushed with embarrassment. He quietly selected a small necklace and counted out exact change, hands trembling slightly. I wanted to help him, but I had to maintain my cover. After Walter left, I checked his receipt. Alex had charged him for a bracelet and the necklace, plus a gift box fee that didn't exist. The total was $30 more than what Walter had actually received. "He'll never notice," Alex told Casey when she questioned the double charge. "These old folks can barely read the receipts anyway." I followed Walter to the parking lot and gently pointed out the error. His shocked expression broke my heart. "But I counted so carefully," he said, close to tears. I helped him return the extra items and get his money back, telling Alex I'd noticed his mistake. Alex glared at me, but couldn't argue with the evidence. That evening, I had dinner with my 2 adult children, Rebecca and James. They'd been encouraging me to slow down and enjoy retirement since Phil died. If only they knew what I was really doing. "Mom, you seem tired lately," Rebecca said, studying my face across the restaurant table. "Are you taking care of yourself?" I forced a smile. "Just keeping busy with the business. You know how it is." James frowned. "I thought you hired managers to handle the day-to-day stuff. Isn't that the point of delegating?" The irony was painful. My own children thought I'd stepped away from the business, while my employees were actively destroying it. I couldn't tell them about my undercover mission. They'd think I'd lost my mind. "Everything's fine," I insisted, changing the subject to their jobs and families. But inside, I felt the weight of keeping such a massive secret. Rebecca reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Dad wouldn't want you working yourself to death, you know. He'd want you to be happy." Her words hit deep. Phil would be heartbroken to see what was happening to our business. These thieves were spitting on everything we'd built together. I squeezed back, forcing another smile. "I know, honey. I'm taking care of myself." But really, I was preparing for war. 2 months into my mission, the harassment escalated. I arrived one morning to find my locker hanging open, my lunch scattered across the floor. A note taped inside read, "Quit already," in block letters. I cleaned up the mess quietly, not reacting in front of anyone. But I took the note home and added it to my growing evidence file. They were getting desperate, which meant they saw me as a threat. The psychological warfare continued daily. My name badge would mysteriously disappear from the board. My register would malfunction right before busy periods. Someone put salt in my coffee cup. "Maybe this job isn't for you," Harlan suggested one day, his voice dripping with fake concern. "Retail can be tough for people your age." I nodded meekly, playing the part of a defeated old woman. "I really need the work," I said softly. "I'll try harder." Alex and Casey exchanged glances, clearly frustrated that I wasn't taking the hint. They wanted me gone, but I wasn't going anywhere. That night, I reinforced my resolve by looking at photos of Phil and me opening our first store. His proud smile reminded me why this mattered. These bullies wouldn't win. They thought they were breaking down a helpless old lady. Instead, they were just giving me more ammunition for their eventual downfall. I started noticing a pattern with expensive inventory. Items would be marked as damaged in the system, then disappear entirely. Jewelry, electronics, designer purses, anything valuable seemed to vanish after being written off. One evening, staying late to practice on the register, I watched Harlan and Alex load boxes into Alex's personal car through the back door. When I asked what they were doing, Harlan barely looked up. "Damaged goods going to charity," he said dismissively. "Above your pay grade, Mary." But I'd seen the damaged items earlier. A diamond necklace with a tiny scratch, a leather purse with a barely visible scuff. These weren't donations, they were theft, plain and simple. I took photos from behind a car in the parking lot, making sure to capture license plates and faces. The flash was off, but my phone captured everything clearly. Back home, I researched the charity Harlan had mentioned. It didn't exist. I also ran the serial numbers on some of the damaged electronics through online marketplaces. 3 items were being sold by an account linked to Alex's social media. They'd created an entire system to steal from me, while maintaining plausible deniability. Write it off as damaged, claim it went to charity, then sell it for personal profit. Phil always said criminals get greedy and eventually expose themselves. I just had to wait. Amid all the toxicity, one person stood out: Mia Santos, a 19-year-old part-timer who'd started a week after me. She was everything my other employees weren't: kind, honest, and genuinely caring toward customers. "Mrs. Valdez, do you need help with the register?" she asked on my second day, using the fake name I'd given. Her offer was sincere, not condescending like the others. Mia reminded me why I'd started this business. She'd chat with elderly customers about their grandchildren, help mothers find affordable clothes for growing kids, and always double-check receipts to make sure charges were correct. The other employees treated her almost as badly as they treated me. "Stop babying the customers," Alex would snap when Mia spent extra time helping someone. "We're not a social service." Harlan seemed especially annoyed by her integrity. When Mia questioned a suspicious return, he pulled her aside for a coaching session about not challenging management decisions. I wanted to protect her but couldn't without blowing my cover. Instead, I tried to support her quietly, covering her register during breaks, helping with difficult customers, sharing my lunch when she forgot hers. Mia was proof that good people still existed. She gave me hope that the business could be saved. By month 3, the intimidation turned darker. Walking to my car after a late shift, I heard footsteps behind me in the empty parking lot. The footsteps matched my pace, faster when I hurried, slower when I slowed down. A voice hissed from the shadows: "Mind your business if you want to keep your job, old lady." I spun around, but saw only darkness between the cars. My heart pounded as I fumbled with my keys, hands shaking. The threat felt real and immediate. Whoever it was knew I'd been watching, taking mental notes, asking too many questions. They were warning me to stop digging or face consequences. I made it to my car and locked the doors immediately. As I drove home, I kept checking my rearview mirror, paranoid that someone might follow me. That night, I considered ending the mission. The stress was affecting my sleep, my appetite, my health. Was it worth risking my safety for a business? But then I thought about Phil, about the customers being cheated, about honest employees like Mia trying to do right in a corrupt environment. I couldn't quit now. These thieves were counting on me being too scared to continue. That alone was reason enough to keep fighting. The stress finally caught up with me during month 4. I was restocking shelves when sudden chest pains dropped me to my knees. My left arm went numb, and breathing became difficult. Mia found me gasping behind the jewelry counter. "Someone call 911, she shouted, kneeling beside me and holding my hand. "Mrs. Valdez, stay with me. Help is coming." Harlan appeared and immediately started calculating the disruption. "Great, now we're short-staffed and have paramedics blocking the entrance," he muttered. At the hospital, tests showed it was severe stress, not a heart attack. But lying in that bed, connected to monitors, I realized how much this mission was costing me. The doctor recommended rest and stress reduction. "Whatever's causing this anxiety needs to stop," she said firmly. "Your body can't handle much more." I thought about Phil, about what he'd say if he could see me now. Would he want me risking my health for the business? Or would he tell me to walk away and start fresh? But as I stared at the ceiling that night, I knew I couldn't quit. These people had to be stopped, not just for me, but for every customer they'd cheated and every honest employee they'd driven away. I was too close to the truth to give up now. 2 days after returning from the hospital, I overheard the conversation that changed everything. Patricia was on the phone in her office, door slightly open, voice low but clear. "The numbers are perfect," she was saying to someone. "Another 6 months of this and the old lady will be desperate to sell. We'll offer pennies on the dollar." My blood ran cold as the pieces fell into place. "Harlan and the crew are doing exactly what we discussed," Patricia continued. "Drive down profits, chase away customers, create chaos. When Vance gets tired of losing money, we swoop in with a buyout offer." I pressed closer to the door, phone recording everything. "She's too old and sentimental to see what's happening. Thinks it's just bad luck and poor economy. By the time she realizes it's sabotage, her reputation will be ruined, and she'll have no choice but to sell cheap." The caller said something I couldn't hear. Then Patricia laughed coldly. "Trust me, this business will be ours within a year. Phil's dead, her kids don't care about retail, and she's too weak to fight back. It's the perfect setup." Hearing Phil's name in her mouth made me physically sick. This wasn't just theft. It was a coordinated conspiracy to destroy my life's work and steal my late husband's legacy. I had my smoking gun. The holiday season brought out the worst in my corrupt employees. With higher sales volume, their scams multiplied. They charged customers for gift wrapping that didn't exist, pocketing the fees. Popular items would mysteriously disappear from displays, only to appear later on Alex's online marketplace. During Black Friday, I watched Harlan deliberately create long lines by opening only 2 registers, then charge customers extra rush fees during the chaos. When people complained, he'd shrug and say, "Holiday surcharge, company policy." There was no such policy. I'd written every policy manual myself. Casey had perfected the art of double-scanning expensive items, then acting confused when customers questioned their receipts. "The system must have glitched," she'd say innocently, while pocketing the overcharge. The most heartbreaking moment came when an elderly woman tried to return a coat that didn't fit her grandson. Ryan claimed she needed the original special receipt that he'd never given her, then kept both the coat and her money. I documented everything. Photos, videos, audio recordings. My evidence file had grown into multiple folders, each one containing clear proof of theft, fraud, and conspiracy. The hardest part was watching good customers get cheated while I couldn't intervene without blowing my cover. Every stolen dollar felt personal, but soon, very soon, justice would come. My heart broke when Mia started acting distant. She'd been my one bright spot in that toxic environment. But suddenly she avoided eye contact and barely spoke to me. I feared they'd turned her against me until I overheard Alex cornering her in the stockroom. "Stay away from the old lady," he hissed. "She's trouble, asking too many questions, watching everything we do. If you keep being friendly with her, you might lose your job too." "But Mrs. Valdez is nice." Mia protested weakly. "She helps customers and works hard." "She's a snitch," Casey added, appearing in the doorway. "Management is watching her. Don't get caught in the crossfire." That evening, Mia slipped me a note with her timesheet. "I'm sorry I can't talk to you. They threatened to fire me if I'm seen being friendly with you. You're a good person. Be careful." Her words touched my heart, but also steeled my resolve. These bullies were threatening an innocent teenager for showing basic human kindness. They'd created an environment so toxic that being decent was dangerous. Mia's courage in warning me, despite the risks, reminded me that this fight was bigger than just my business. It was about protecting good people from predators. 5 months in, I had everything I needed. Financial records showing the thefts, photos of stolen merchandise being loaded into personal cars, recordings of Patricia's conspiracy phone calls, videos of customers being cheated, written threats and intimidation evidence. I sent copies of everything to my lawyer, Winston Hughes, with instructions to proceed if anything happened to me. The truth would come out, regardless of whether I was there to tell it. Winston was shocked by the scope of the corruption. "Meryl, this is criminal conspiracy," he said during our secret meeting. "We're talking about multiple felonies here." I also shared the evidence with my accountant, who'd been puzzled by the declining profits. "This explains everything," she said, shaking her head. "They've stolen approximately $200,000 over the past year." The Human Resources Director, Carol, nearly cried when I showed her the recordings. I knew something was wrong when all our good employees started quitting, but I never imagined this level of coordinated sabotage. We planned the confrontation carefully. HR would be present along with my lawyer and security. The guilty parties would be terminated immediately and face criminal charges. After 6 months of humiliation and theft, justice was finally coming. But first, I had one more performance to give. Monday morning, I walked into the store wearing my best tailored suit, hair professionally styled in my natural silver color. I looked exactly like the portrait hanging in the main office, the owner these employees had mocked and stolen from for months. The recognition was instant. Harlan's face went white. Alex dropped the merchandise he was holding. Casey's mouth fell open. Patricia emerged from her office and froze in the doorway. "Good morning, everyone," I said calmly, my real voice carrying the authority they'd never heard from Mary Valdez. "I believe we need to have a conversation." Harlan tried to recover first. "Mrs. Vance, what a surprise. We weren't expecting—" "No," I cut him off. "You weren't expecting me at all. You thought I was just a helpless old woman you could manipulate and steal from." The silence was deafening. Customers in the store stopped shopping, sensing the tension. Other employees gathered around, confused but intrigued. Mia recognized me immediately, her eyes wide with shock and understanding. She mouthed, "Oh my God," as the pieces clicked into place. I let the silence stretch, watching sweat form on their foreheads. For 6 months, they'd held all the power. Now the tables had turned completely. "Conference room," I said quietly. "Now." The conference room had never felt smaller. Harlan, Alex, Casey, Ryan, and Patricia sat around the table like defendants awaiting sentencing. Carol from HR sat beside me with a stack of termination papers. Winston had his briefcase open, legal documents spread across the table. "For the past 6 months," I began, "I've been working as Mary Valdez, documenting every theft, every scam, every cruel comment you've made." I clicked on my laptop and the wall screen lit up with evidence. Photos of them loading stolen merchandise, audio recordings of them mocking customers, financial records showing the thefts. Harlan tried to speak, but I held up my hand. "You called me useless," I continued, my voice steady. "You said I was too old, too slow, too stupid to understand what was happening. You threatened me in parking lots and left nasty notes in my locker." The recording of Patricia's phone call played next. Her voice filled the room. "The old lady will be desperate to sell. Phil's dead. She's too weak to fight back." Patricia's face crumpled. Several others looked like they might be sick. "You didn't just steal money," I said, standing up. "You stole from my customers, threatened my employees, and tried to destroy my late husband's legacy." Security appeared in the doorway, waiting for my signal. "Harlan Peters," I said, reading from Carol's list. "You're terminated for theft, fraud, and conspiracy. Security will escort you out." Harlan's confidence had completely evaporated. "Mrs. Vance, please, I can explain." "Alex Chen, Casey Williams, Ryan Brooks, same charges, same result. Get out of my store." One by one, security escorted them past the customers and remaining employees. Their faces showed a mixture of shame, anger, and disbelief. After months of feeling invincible, reality had crashed down in minutes. Patricia was last. "You're not just fired," I told her. "I'm pressing criminal charges for conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted theft of a business. My lawyer has everything documented." She tried to maintain some dignity, but her hands shook as she gathered her belongings. "This won't stick in court," she said weakly. "We'll see," Winston replied, tapping his briefcase. "6 months of evidence says otherwise." As the last corrupt employee was escorted out, the remaining staff stood in stunned silence. Some looked relieved, others confused, all of them processing what they'd just witnessed. The customers who'd stayed to watch began applauding. One elderly man, a regular customer I'd helped during my undercover months, stepped forward. "Thank you," he said simply. "This place feels different already." Within hours, word spread through the retail community. The story of the business owner who went undercover to catch thieves became local legend. Customers returned in droves, curious to shop at the store where justice had been served. I promoted Mia to assistant manager immediately. At 19, she had more integrity than employees twice her age. Her first act was implementing a customer service training program focused on respect and honesty. "Mrs. Vance," she said privately, "I can't believe you went through all that. You could have just fired everyone and started over." "I needed proof," I explained. "And I needed to understand how deep the corruption went. You can't fix a problem you don't fully understand." The other honest employees who'd survived the purge seemed energized by the change. Morale improved overnight. Customers commented on the friendlier atmosphere. Sales began recovering immediately. Local media picked up the story, but I kept interviews minimal. This wasn't about publicity. It was about justice and protecting honest people. Phil would have been proud, I thought. We'd saved the business he'd helped build, preserved the values he'd instilled, and proven that integrity still mattered. The thieves faced criminal charges, but that was for the courts to decide. My job was done. 6 months later, I stood in the same break room where this all began, watching Mia train new employees on our customer service standards. The atmosphere was completely different. Warm, respectful, honest. Profits had returned to normal levels. Customer complaints dropped to nearly zero. Good employees no longer quit in frustration. The business was healing. I still came in regularly, but as myself now, the owner who cared about her employees and customers. No more disguises, no more pretending to be powerless. That evening, I locked up the store and stood outside for a moment, looking at the sign with Phil's and my name on it. The sunset cast a warm glow over everything, making the building look golden. I didn't feel triumphant or vengeful. I felt peaceful. The cancer had been removed, the wound was healing, and honest people could thrive again. As I walked to my car, I thought about the lesson in all this. People reveal their true character when they think nobody important is watching. Harlan and his crew showed theirs, and it was ugly. But Mia and customers like Walter showed theirs too. And it was beautiful. In the end, that's what mattered most. Not the money recovered or the thieves punished, but the good people protected and the values preserved. Phil would have understood completely.